Welcome, everyone. We will be performing Hamlet, Act 2, Scene 2, lines 225 to 319. My name is Siva, and I'm going to be acting as Guildenstern.
My name is Nick, and I'm going to be acting as Hamlet.
And my name is Jag, and I will be Rosencrantz.
I hope you enjoy our performance.
Alright, just to give you some context, this is Hamlet's first encounter with his childhood friends Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, who have sort of mysteriously shown up out of the blue. They were put up to it by the king and queen, who were trying to look further into Hamlet's perceived madness, and Hamlet is slightly dubious of why they've shown up.
My excellent good friends, how dost thou, Guildenstern? Ah, Rosencrantz, good lads, how do you both?
As the indifferent children of the earth.
Happy in that we are not over happy. On Fortune's cap, we are not the very button.
Ha, nor the soles of her shoe?
Neither, my lord.
Then you live about her waist, or in the middle of her favors?
Faith or privates, we.
In the secret parts of Fortune? Oh, most true, she is a strumpet. What's the news?
None, my lord, but that the world's grown honest.
Then is doomsday near. But your news is not true. Let me question more in particular. What have you, my good friends, deserved at the hands of Fortune, that she sends you to prison hither?
Prison, my lord.
Denmark's a prison.
Then the world is one.
A goodly one, in which there are many confines, wards, and dungeons, Denmark being one of the worst.
We think not so, my lord.
Why then, 'tis none to you, for there is nothing either good or bad. But thinking makes it so. To me, it's a prison.
Why then your ambition makes it one. 'Tis too narrow for your mind.
O God, I could be bounded in a nutshell and count myself a king of infinite space, were it not that I have bad dreams.
Which dreams indeed are ambition, for the very substance of the ambitious is merely the shadow of a dream.
A dream is but a shadow.
Truly, and I hold ambition of so airy and light a quality that it is but a shadow's shadow.
Then are our beggars' bodies, and our monarchs and outstretched heroes and beggars' shadows? Shall we to the court? For by my fay I cannot reason.
We'll wait upon you.
No such matter. I will not sort you with the rest of my servants, for, to speak to you like an honest man, I am most dreadfully attended. But in the beaten way of friendship, what make you at Elsinore?
To visit you, my lord. No other occasion.
Beggar that I am even poor in thanks. But I thank you. And sure, dear friends, my thanks are too dear a halfpenny. Were you not sent for? Is it your own inclining? Is it free visitation? Come, deal justly with me. Come, nay, speak.
What? What should we say, my lord?
Why, anything but to the purpose. You were sent for, and there is a kind of confession in your looks which your modesties have not craft enough to color. I know the good king and queen have sent for you.
To what end, my lord?
That you must teach me. But let me conjure you, by the rights of our fellowship, by the consonancy of our youth, by the obligation of our ever-preserved love, and by what more dear a better proposer could charge you withal, be even and direct with me, whether you were sent for or no.
What say you?
Nay, then I have an eye of you. If you love me, hold not off.
My lord, we were sent for.
I will tell you why. So shall my anticipation prevent your discovery, and your secrecy to the king and queen moult no feather. I have of late, but wherefore I know not, lost all my mirth, forgone all custom of exercises, and indeed it goes so heavily with my disposition, that this goodly frame, the earth, seems to me a sterile promontory. This most excellent canopy, the air, look you, this brave o'erhanging firmament, this majestical roof fretted with golden fire, why, it appears no other thing to me than a foul and pestilent congregation of vapors. What a piece of work is man! How noble in reason, how infinite in faculty! In form and moving, how express and admirable! In action, how like an angel! In apprehension, how like a god! The beauty of the world, the paragon of animals, and yet, to me, what is this quintessence of dust? Man delights not me, no, nor woman neither, though by your smiling you seem to say so.
Alright, we hope you enjoyed that. If you want to know why we made the choices we made and why we did the scene the way we did, here's some analysis for you.
Okay, so our scene in Hamlet is the first scene in which Rosencrantz and Guildenstern meet up with Hamlet in the play, and they're trying to extract out of Hamlet the reasons why he's feeling so down and acting all depressed.
Yeah, but the reasons of their inquiries aren't as genuine as they try to bring it upon them. Because, like, in a scene before, the king and queen and Polonius try to describe, like, plans to get out what's bothering Hamlet, what's up with him. So Polonius uses Ophelia to try to get down to his true, like, layers, and the king and queen try to use his old friends Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. And that's how this scene comes about, with the king suggesting that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern come in and talk to Hamlet and try to figure out, like, what's happening, because the king and queen definitely can't get the information out of him, and he's just been talking in circles whenever he talks to the king and queen.
Okay, so Hamlet's mindset in the beginning of this scene is he's feeling pretty depressed because, of course, his father was murdered, and now that he knows that well, he knows now that his father is murdered by his uncle, or that is the claim by the ghost, and he's believing it. So he's trying to figure out, how he should go about, exacting revenge upon his uncle, because he's going to do it, he doesn't know when or how. So he's in a state of distress almost, and he's very reserved to everybody that he's talking to. And so that's where Hamlet's state of mind is going into this scene.
Yeah, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they're completely different, because they're literally they've been summoned by the king to show up, and they've also been told by the king to go and talk to Hamlet. So literally they're just puppets. They're just trying to use their old friendship and try to bring it back to something that they can use now, but, it's not something that you can do immediately, and I think Hamlet senses that too in the play. Could you say that?
Yeah, I do think so. He can honestly, from the start of the play, right when he sees Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, you can tell he senses that something is up. They're not just here to meet him and, talk about old times and catch up.
It makes perfect sense, because, like, the timing of when Rosencrantz and Guildenstern show up, it's not mentioned in the play, but I'm assuming that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern didn't show up when his father died, or during the wedding, which are both times, like, if a lot of people are showing up, they better show up too, being friends, but it doesn't seem like it. And now that they're coming at a time when the king and queen are really on Hamlet's case, there's something that's really coming up in Hamlet's mind.
Yeah, so Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are coming in all, fake excitement in the beginning of the scene. So Hamlet is doing the same thing. He's trying to almost play them to what he wants, and he moves on a little aggressively near line 230, where he starts playing jokes with them, and they think it's just a friendly joke, but
Yeah.
He's really just making fun of them.
Yeah. And they're just taking it. They're thinking that, like, oh, it's just like old times being, like, friends and stuff. They just joke around, but he has something onto them.
Yeah, so Hamlet, he first asks them kind of after the joke is over, jokingly, kind of, why are you here? And they're just going to try and play it off.
Yeah, like, they play it off cool, they're just like, for you, my lord. But Hamlet knows that's not right. If they really cared, they would have came earlier. This isn't the best time for them to show up.
Yeah, so once he asks them why they're here and they play it off, Hamlet starts to kind of go back into his reserved state. He's kind of lost.
Because it makes sense, because, like, you can have, like, friends when you're little, but Hamlet's seeing these guys, and, he's been through a lot very recently, finding out his, dad was, like, murdered by his own brother. That's pretty devastating to find out who he actually trusts anymore. So going back to a reserved state, even to his true friends, it makes sense.
Yeah, so he asked them a couple of times after the first initial time, why are you here? And them not answering directly it's starting to get Hamlet a little bit aggravated with them, and he's pretty much tired of playing games with them at halfway point through the scene. So now he's pretty aggravated that his friends are turning against him. Every time, like first instance Ophelia, second time Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, they're all turning against him. When they should be helping him out.
They're turning against him because they're being played like puppets. Like Ophelia, she's being played by Polonius. Like at first Polonius was like, you can't do this, you can't do that, Ophelia. And now, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, same thing. They're being puppets by the king.
And so,
yeah. So like as it progressed, like Rosencrantz and Guildenstern were really happy at the beginning. They were, even though they said they weren't over happy, they probably were bubbling with like fake excitement. And as it went through, they got more serious too because they exchanged glances, they had pauses in what they were saying because they were a little bit taken back. They were expecting it to be pretty easy talking to their old friend, but they realized that their old friend isn't the same anymore, and they weren't the same anymore. Because they were all trying to like have trust, right? Rosencrantz and Guildenstern were trying to use the trust that they had before to get the information out of him, but they're all lying. Hamlet's lying that he believes them, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are lying that they're telling the truth. And it gets down to them, and then in the line where he says, "My lord, we were sent for," that's that's like the bottom of it. That's when the truth of whatever they're saying falls apart and disintegrates, and Hamlet understands, his true friends aren't his true friends anymore. They just fell apart.
Yep, exactly. And so that last large speech by Hamlet, he's basically just making them feel guilty. That's his main goal here. And so he talks about, why he's lost. He basically answers what they're looking for in an indirect way. He basically tells them why he's feeling so down. I mean, he doesn't say that his uncle was, or his father was murdered by his uncle, but he basically answers their initial question, which he had already known was the reason they were there. And then, he kind of makes them feel guilty because, again, they're turning on him and they're his best friends, basically.
Yeah. I mean, like, if you think about what Hamlet's been going through, and this type of, like, low blow to him isn't as severe because he's already shielded to everybody else. Even though, like, they cheated on him, he's kind of like, okay, you guys are just adding to the collection of people I can't trust anymore. And when he called Denmark a prison of like guilt, like it's because there's so many bad people in it. And Rosencrantz and Guildenstern now are adding to that tally. And I think forward in the play, if you keep going on, you can see that Hamlet becomes even more reserved to certain characters, but remains open to ones he trusts. And like one of the characters he trusts is Horatio because he saw the ghost. He has an idea of what's happening, and he's genuine feelings come out, and I think Hamlet understands that. But the other characters, Hamlet doesn't, not even the queen, he doesn't feel as comfortable talking with, and it's not really open connection.
Yeah, so Hamlet comes out of it, he's lost almost all the trust in everybody except for Horatio. He is a little bit aggravated that his friends are turning on him, and he is even more ready to enact revenge upon his uncle because of all of this puppeteering that's going on.
Yeah, and like later in the play, when Claudius sends out Hamlet to go die in England, right? And there's the whole part with Hamlet coming back, and you find out that Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are the people that actually are killed. You can tell that there was a shift. At first, Hamlet, like, he wouldn't have killed somebody else, but when someone tried to betray his trust, like they did right there, and they lied to him for multiple times, like throughout the conversation, he knew that they were just as bad as everyone else. They could have committed more crimes because they weren't being themselves. They were just being, they're being puppets or toys to other people and to the greed that they want. Because if they're true friends and they came, they wouldn't have to go talk to the king to go talk to Hamlet. They could have went straight to him and started talking to him, being like, "Hey Hamlet, what's up? Like, I'm kind of curious." You didn't have to bring the king into it, but once he found out that the king was sent for, like, they knew that it didn't matter anymore. In a lot of literature, they use other foil characters to help build the main character a little bit more. So, like, in Hamlet, we can take Rosencrantz and Guildenstern and, like, what do you think are some ideas on how to how he used them to build Hamlet.
I mean, Rosencrantz and Guildenstern sort of mirror opposing ideas that show up in the character of Hamlet uh, a lot. I mean, they always show up together in stark contrast with Hamlet's sort of lone wolf.
Yeah, I mean the only person that Hamlet really works with is Horatio, and that too it's not as close as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern.
Yeah, it's just the occasional encounter. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are inseparable to the point where they confuse each other.
Yeah.
I mean, they in many ways act as the same person. And when we were playing this, there's a lot of temptation to sort of play them as the same person.
Exactly, because Rosencrantz and Guildenstern they shared the same emotions, and to be honest, they're like the same person. Like they're both, if the king said something, they'd both fall on his knees and just obey it. So they're really simple people.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, from an observational standpoint, in the text we looked at, I mean, it looks like Shakespeare intended them to follow the same emotional cues. Just looking at textual cues, they seem to always change their emotional standpoint together.
That's true. And there was another contrast between the way like Hamlet was talking and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern were talking, and you can notice that even in the text that we did earlier, is that Hamlet talked very sophisticated. He went into his long rants and whatnot to kind of like mock what was going on, but Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, their responses were always simple and like to the point. They didn't go on with this complex conversation that Hamlet was going through. So.
Right. They're certainly less educated. Certainly meant to function as a slang for Hamlet to bounce his sort of conspiratorial notions off of. I mean, yeah. And while they're certainly conspiring against Hamlet in this scene, they also sort of are acting in his best interest. I mean, at least that's what they believe.
Well, that's because the king and queen have made it seem that that's the best interest, but I don't think Hamlet wants to trust the king and queen at this point.
Certainly not. I mean, this entire thing sort of catalyzes his distrust of him, of the king and queen.
Yeah, and the
fact that his childhood friends are willing to conspire against him.
Exactly, and I think that we played that also with the characters.
Yeah. It's a major turning point for him. And the whole scene is him wearing them down to the point where this last major admission that sort of precipitates his further understanding of how far the world in general is willing to go to.
Yeah, and I mean, even in the way we presented the scene, you could tell that there was a different tone to Hamlet at the turning point when he knew that, okay, these guys didn't come for me. They came because like the king and queen sent for me.
Right. It builds to realization on Hamlet's part and admission on Rosencrantz and Guildenstern's part.
Exactly. They were disappointed, and they were disappointed in themselves for being guilty of it.
Exactly, yeah. I don't know if it's so much a realization for them that they betrayed him, or I don't know. All right, thank you for listening. This has been our podcast, and that's it.